This is TVA by Gemma, a podcast about your human issues brought to you by darkcrazy.com.
I saw a TikTok today of this like girl watching. She was like, "Did you know at the end of Winter Soldier, if you look at the grave, it reminds me of this." It's like, and she's because it says Ezekiel 25.
Yeah,
and she's like, "Play the clips." Like, that's amazing. I was like, for us, we saw that kind of cute,
obvious. Yeah,
like, but for us, because it was so obvious, the experience of it was like, "Oh, that's cute."
Well, because we saw Pulp Fiction 20 times.
But
we were in college when Pulp Fiction came out. We were that.
But Pulp Fiction is at a formative time. For her, Pulp Fiction is just a movie.
It's just some old movie, yeah.
That she might have seen to make that connection. But hers like blew her mind. I was like, that's cute. I was like, at first I'd be like, yeah, no kid. Like, my first reaction was like, yeah, duh. But then I was like, hold on.
Dumbass.
But then I saw that she was excited. I was like, well, see, that's nice. Like, she gets more, like, that's more than we had. So I'm like, huh.
I think those people get more of the movies because there is something, we've talked about it before, especially with stuff like Marvel movies where they have this ongoing lore. Is like, I do think the best emotional moments in movies are agnostic to the lore. Like when Captain America picks up Thor's hammer in Endgame, you don't have to have seen the other movies to understand what a big moment that is. It works for everybody. If you are invested in the movies, then you understand the lore of Mjolnir and the worthiness and all this kind of stuff, and how like Thor had to prove himself worthy, and the time Cap tried to pick it up and it moved a little and it was a big deal. But if you're just watching that movie for the first time, get it. It's an emotional beat.
Well, that's what I mean, though.
Like, it's agnostic to lore in that way, and it works better. Easter eggs should be there for people who are looking for the details, but everyone else just misses them because
humans are good at those contextual clues, those too. Because again, I remember having this observation when we watched, having never really watched maybe one or two episodes of the original Star Trek series, and I've never seen one of those movies, not one of those Star Trek movies. The original, I was a Next Generation kid. I watched Next Generation a bunch, but I've probably seen every Next Generation movie. I've never seen the original Star Trek movies.
That's an interesting education you had there.
But culturally, I know that like Spock and Kirk are like Sam and Frodo, sort of, you know what I mean? Or they a little more contentious in a lot of ways, but like that's one of a classic duo, right? So when you watch that stuff out of context, and even in the reboot, where it's like they are antagonistic till they're not, until they come, that becomes a powerful, because the culture, I feel like, these are like two characters that are supposed to be like, you know what I mean? Like you feel you're good at picking up clues and knowing. I mean, again, I know more than average because I know about Star Trek. It's not like I'm just coming in, but I think most people do pick up like, I know these guys are supposed to be together. Like as far as like friends, aren't they supposed to be friends? Like, and that I think we're good at like filling in those gaps emotionally, you know, and that's what Marvel does so well with that stuff.
If you're a big fan, what you want is when they mention some alien race, you're like, "Oh, those are those aliens from that episode, that time." Doesn't mean anything to the casual viewer. It doesn't take anything away from the casual viewer, but it's big for the kids who are into the lore. But you don't want your movie to be dependent on lore. Like, even in Endgame, they established within that one movie that you had to be worthy to hold Thor's hammer, because even Thor said that when he got the hammer. So you knew if for some reason, 22 movies in, you saw Endgame first.
Right.
Like, you knew that was a big moment that Captain America could pick up that hammer.
Well, and that's why, like, but even the simple level, too, like you think about it in Civil War, the moment where he knocks him down and he gets back up and he reads it like, "I can do this all day" line. It works out of context as just kind of a cool line to say when like you're being, it's sort of a tough line when you're like getting beat up, like, "I can do this all day." And when he was a kid, it was funny because out of context, it was just a joke. He's like, "I can do this." I was like, "Shut up, you little squirt." Like, you know, he's about to beat the crap out even more. If he says it later, it works just like, oh, if that's the first movie you've seen, he's like, oh, he's like tough. Like it actually, what's so magical about it, it makes that character go like, wow, this tells you something about Captain America's character. Now, if we've seen both of them, you get like a tear. You're like, oh God, this is like, he is this. It becomes even more enforcing because it's
that reversal is emotional because in the first Captain America movie, he's saying that, and then Bucky is the big guy who comes in to defend him. In Civil War, he's saying it because he's standing up to defend Bucky.
Well, that's why
it's not just a callback to a line; it's a callback to an emotional beat.
But see, that's why I'm fascinated by these Marvel movies, and like as dumb as people might think, that's why I love these shows because it allows me to go. I'm going to rewatch Age of Ultron right now or whatever. Like I've rewatched so many Marvel movies in the last few months because of these shows. I'm like, I'm going to watch Winter Soldier again now after watching like because. I do think they do such a good job of layering in, like whatever these directors. You can say, well, they're just journeymen and they're coming in doing. I think those two writers, Marcus McFeely, are pretty phenomenal. What they did with their kind of run of Captain America to Endgame and Infinity War, it's pretty phenomenal. Some of the stuff they layer
and it
into
works.
It
everything
like really does
work so well. I'm glad that we're getting to see more voices and we're going to see different ideas come into these new phases, and it's hard to tell where it's even headed.
Well,
but it's fun in those early phases that they told one complete story over the course of all those movies.
Well, but then also just all the different places they brought in. It's like I didn't rewatch because after he died, Chadwick, but like Black Panther, I was like, I don't want to watch that again. It makes me feel sad that he's like dead. Like, but I think I watched one of the reaction people that I watched. They were watching through them. They got to that, and that's like it'd been like a year or two since I'd seen. I might have only seen that like twice. That Black Panther, and you watch the scenes of it, the big sense like, man, that's such a good movie. I need to watch that. Like, it's such a good, but it's so different and it's so emotional. They'd make that one has a different idea too because it's a culture and other thing that we don't know. Like, they're introducing an idea that's not familiar for me from the comics. So it's like. You don't even know the familial setup and all this stuff. And by like but the way they treat it, 10 minutes into it, you're getting emotional about stuff with it. You're like, oh God, they do that with him and his dad in Civil War, where his dad gets all serious and he's like, you are like, oh my God, that's such a, like within 2 scenes, you met him and then 30 seconds later, he dies and he's crying over his body. And you're already like,
I know I've raved about Civil War, but just imagine all the moving parts that are at work in that story. Like, because they didn't think they were going to have Spider-Man, so they put in a big part to introduce Black Panther, and it was a solid part to introduce Black Panther, and had an emotional moment, and it introduced him in a way that he could spring immediately into his own movie. And then they had a really good story for Captain America and for Iron Man in that conflict that made sense. They made good use of Bucky as the sort of catalyst for that story. Zemo's the best villain they've ever had in one of their movies. And then just somewhere in the end, Spider-Man shows up. They bring in Spider-Man. And it's Giant Man, too.
And Giant Man, too, right at the end. Like,
and there's an emotional introduction for Spider-Man. I mean, that movie just hits on so many levels.
It's my favorite. We had to do... I didn't for work. We were just messing around in Discord. I was like, what are your top 10 movies? I've never done this before. I really thought about it. And Civil War is actually, I was like, I got to pick a Marvel movie. Civil War is my favorite. I put that in my, like, somewhere in my top because it's my favorite. It's
got to be my favorite Marvel movie.
It's my favorite. It's the most emotionally resonant because that ending is a powerhouse.
It's the most justifiable. So many fun moments.
It has so many fun moments. But again, I think then it goes into the best third act. I mean, outside of Endgame was fun. But it has that in the second act, and that's all fun. We have the battle. Great, awesome. But you get to the third act, and that whole – it's so great. It's so emotionally resonant. It's like, oh, man, this worked. This is so good. Like, him getting pissed because anybody would get pissed. Anybody would go to that. It's like, you killed my mother.
It's somewhat irrational based on the facts of the situation. But, based on how they introduced – it's irrational when you know that Bucky wasn't – like he wasn't in control when he was doing that.
It's one of those things that even no matter what happened with Steve or with Tony in the future, you're not going to have a scene with him and Bucky. That would just feel like it's too much. It's like one of those things like I can't even talk to this guy still though.
Yeah.
Like they never had that. It's just like in movies where they have, I always say this in the rom-com we talked about this before. It's like, I always think of Serendipity is the one that I think about, that movie with John Cusack and Kate Beckinsale. But his wife, his fiance is great. She's gorgeous. The one, I forgot what her name was. She's that actress too. And there's nothing wrong with her. That's why I hate these movies. Where like she's great. And she's not even boring. Like sure, like as a writing, he's like, but he falls in love with her, and then he like goes, and then off camera he breaks up with her. You know why that's off camera?
Really?
Well, he breaks up with it. Like
there's no way he's not a shit. He'll do it.
Yes. Yes, because we would hate him for doing that in the last act when we're supposed to like that they fall in love and see each other on the skating ring or whatever. Like, look, it's serendipitous. Like, it's like you would hate him. You're like, what a jerk.
Yeah, I can't
Like, he
watch
broke
that
her
movie.
heart.
But I think I saw
I mean?
like 10 minutes of that movie, and I was like, I see where this is going.
But,
and turned it
you
off.
understand what I'm saying, though? So it's like, it's the same thing. That turn and the bad blood, I think, would still be there. Like, it would still be disturbing, despite how great of a guy Bucky is.
In a way, it's a shame because
like, he never, you know,
Bucky is having to make amends. To see those two come to a resolution would have been interesting. But in a way, they are like sort of they dodged a bullet that it didn't have to come to.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good transition. We should talk about Captain America, Winter Soldier, all that. But that's a good point because at the end of that, Bucky is going. He makes amends to those people, but what he has to do is it means he's sacrificing all this friendship because they can't be friends with him.
Yeah, we don't see how that conversation played out.
But we see that he's
way
at the restaurant. And they obviously probably don't want it. And she looks up and like, oh, this is weird. Like she probably doesn't know the story. But obviously,
he probably doesn't go around telling everybody.
But the guy doesn't want to hang out with him. Obviously, I understand.
And, that guy might have forgiven him in the sense that, thank you for telling me. But we're not going to be pals
with you anymore. You killed my
we
kid.
Can't. I'm sorry that you were brainwashed, but I can't look you in the face and know that.
So speaking of that, what'd you think of how it ended of the whole thing?
I liked it. It ended about the way that I anticipated that it would. Episode 5 was such a strong episode, and I liked it so much.
Another great one. So
it's like kind of there's kind of a Game of Thrones thing with all these because the need to end with a punch up. You understand that last episode's always going to be pretty much by the numbers. The second to last is when we're going to get the nice emotional moments. Like people are like, well, not a lot of action in this besides them fighting bad Captain America.
I feel this last episode was a real big victim of the thing where they said there's a whole vaccine storyline. They had to kill and rework everything. And they still won't admit what that storyline was, but they have admitted that there was a storyline that cut out. The showrunner said that it was not pandemic related, but he's not allowed to say what it was. It almost suggests that they might have mined some ideas that they'll revisit later. It had something to do with the disease, though. It might not be related to this pandemic. That's what he could have meant when he said that. So I have no idea. Like, I like what he said. He's like, they told me not to stop talking about it, so I just stopped talking about it. Like, all right, well.
Well, I can see if the storyline was that they're developing a deadly pandemic in Madripoor, it's like having an engineered virus from an Asian country would be pretty bad, and then
vaccine
if there was some bad potentially tainted vaccines and stuff, like,
that would be really bad.
You can do any of that. Yeah, that's all gotta go.
But because the last episode feel like, again, I like, the 5th episode, we hadn't talked about that. The 5th episode was great. That's the juice you want. And episode 2 and episode 5 are the best of this whole thing. You're like, that's the night before the Winterfell battle episode.
Where they get to tell the stuff that they really find important, but it's not the resolution of the action.
Not resolution yet, but they open up and they talk to each other, and it's like they become friends for the sort of first time. You're like, this is great. I love this. I love all of this stuff.
It's great because what happens, what Sam wants in that episode 5 is he wants to go and have is it Elijah or Isaiah? Elijah's his grandson.
Yeah.
And Elijah, he would like for Elijah to either take the shield from him as a show of respect, or in some way endorse the fact that he will take the shield. And instead, he does the opposite. He's like, no self-respecting black man would be Captain America.
Yeah.
And so what I love about that is now that he's going through this, like, he has to make his own decision based on everything.
That's what I want. Yeah, great you mentioned that. I just want to talk to you about, because as goofy as some of this episodes in this show were, it's like 3 and 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe some of this last episode, we'll get to that. The whole idea, they don't really, as much as this show does, like, look, we're talking about this right now. You're like, it is not subtle at all. That idea, what you just talked about, is super subtle and interesting how they play that out. Like, it's really solid writing, where it's like, because when you, because you could see it across all the reaction videos I watched too. When Isaiah says that, almost all of them go, Yeah, well, I guess maybe he doesn't become Captain America because you think of him as like he was wrong. He's the authority figure on this. It really hits the way, like the morality of the show in that moment feels like that's telling you he shouldn't be Captain America. This should be given up because he's such a moral centered figure. So,
which is what he was already leaning towards.
And he already thought that, and he doesn't fight him on that topic either. And I love it because it really does feel like, well, no, and I knew that wasn't going to be the case, but I liked how they didn't go. It wasn't until he has that conversation with his sister where he really kind of, you don't understand where he's coming from. You're like, no, I'm going to, he didn't even explicitly say it there either. So it's like, I like that it comes through action and him talking to each other. Like, it was actually way more subtle than
he comes to his own decision. Yeah. What I hated about episode 3 more than anything else, like episode 3 was clumsy in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's bad.
But as far as action wise, it was fine. But what I hated about that episode was Sam has no agency in that episode. He's just, people are telling him to do stuff. He's following him around. He's like, I don't think this is a good idea, but he does it. Like, why am I dressed like a pimp? Like, why are you? Because that was a dumb idea. Why didn't you question the plan before you got in the outfit?
Yeah.
But throughout the rest of the show and the 5th and 6th episodes, we see
starting in the
more where
he starts talking to her as a counselor. He's like, let me talk to her real quick. And he starts using his ability and his past as like,
and he starts taking
I know how to talk to these people. Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to do what you guys say, and I'm not going to do the opposite of what you guys say just because you're saying it either. I got to take this information in. So this whole idea of, like, first of all, Steve and Bucky have to understand that my decision to become Captain America is really complicated. Just because you gave me permission to be Captain America doesn't make me necessarily want to be Captain America for you.
And he never vocalized that at all the whole time. And he never really does either. Even Bucky is the one that vocalizes. That's such a sweet moment too, where he literally apologizes for him and Steve. He's like, we didn't know, man. Like, we didn't see that at all. And I was like, that's so sweet of him, like, to not just be goofy in them or not just be like, but he's explicitly saying the issue. And Sam doesn't even say that till the end, the very, 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 like, really what the whole deal is about. Like, obviously, it's the whole point is like, will the world or the country accept a black Captain America? That's what he's scared of. Mm-hmm. He never vocalizes that or even does it until he becomes, which is interesting. Like, what I'm saying is it's told through other people's dialogue with him, and he never says it. He's always, it's interesting.
Yeah, well, because it would come off as forced if he just said that outright.
Yeah, I know. That's so, but it's way
he just
more
says,
subtle
look,
than,
I'm doing what I think is right. I'm making my own decision because I'm also not a monolith for the black people. I can't make a decision whether or not there should or shouldn't be a black Captain America.
And like you said, he's
trying to make the best decision I can make.
When he initially sees him, he goes back. He sees Isaiah as like a possible, and this isn't said either, but this is all subtext that I think is that I read that I think is interesting, which is I think he potentially, I mean, he wants to hear a story and he gets appalled by it, but he also potentially, even when we read that conversation where he's talking to him, he sees him as a potential inspirational figure because he's like, oh shit, there was a super soldier before. That means I'm more justified in becoming Captain America.
You were a black Captain America. Yeah, maybe you can be a bit of a mentor to me in this situation. That guy just says straight up, you should not want. He doesn't say you, but he basically is saying nobody, no self-respecting black.
First, he says, "Don't bring that shield here. Leave that in there. I don't want that shield." Like, you don't know if he wants us to give it to him or something at that point. Like, he's sort of a stray at that point in that 5th episode where he's like, and he says that, and he's like,
now he saw like a new Captain America like cut someone's head off with the shield and blade shield. So now it's an even more complicated symbol.
Well, but even I like, but his growth starts even the beginning of that episode where he says, "You're gonna have to give us that shield back." Like, he's taking ownership over the shield again, and it's good that he's saying that. They're not just getting to a fight with him, and he picks.
Yeah, he's not trying to fight him. He
says the intentions like, "You need to give me that shield." And that's when he's like, "Oh, I see how it's going." Like, he's such a Russell Wyatt's so good in this role. Like, I think he's fascinating going forward as a weird, like, overzealous, like.
I think he'll be a fun character because there is a lot.
He's gonna be in the movie, right? I guess, right? He's gonna be.
I hope not. I hope that they're spinning him off into a Thunderbolts kind of deal because I would like to see. I would like to see Bucky in Captain America 4 because I think they're a fun duo. And he's been in all the Captain America movies, weirdly enough.
I love the addition.
I think his relationship with Sam is important to see, and that they have, because Sam is great as Captain America, but he's not a super soldier, so he needs kind of super soldier backup to come, for when like some Hulk kind of thing comes around. Like you get the robot arm and the super serum, you punch that.
Yeah, I could see that one dealing with Agent 13 sort of stuff too, or something like that. Imagine
I guess I don't know where I want that to go. I don't
know where that
care about the Power Broker. I wish they hadn't said anything about
all that
who the
stuff
Power
is
Broker was, because it didn't matter to me.
The problem with this is why I feel like that's all cut up. Yeah, not for negative for 2 seconds. Her and just the Flag Smashers. I have no idea what any of them want. Well, that's sort of the problem.
The Flag Smashers, though, if you look at them for all the episodes, they may be ill-defined, but they're not inconsistent.
No,
they're kind of in line with what they've been saying.
She's sort of ill-defined, though.
Sharon Carter,
but I'm talking about even Carly's sort of ill-defined as a leader. Like, I don't know.
She's on the same path as John Walker. Like, she just gets to a point where she thinks extremism is the answer because she keeps running into it.
Yeah, I know. It's just a weak kind of. She's just sort of one-sided. Like, it's just a weird.
We just don't get to see either of those characters go through it enough.
No, we don't get to see her with her mentor, who just dies off screen. And when we see it's like a real actress, they had no lines for her. Like all that stuff is like we're missing. I think the Power Broker and their storyline like suffered greatly because of whatever re-editing they did.
From episode 3 on, what is Sharon Carter doing?
I don't know.
How is she forwarding her own agenda?
Why did she show up there to like help?
Why did she show up to help?
Why did she tell
she sent people to kill them, and then she beat them up outside, and then apparently she had someone shoot a grenade launcher in her own doctor that she wanted to stay alive.
No, she didn't do that. That was Zemo's butler.
No, I'm talking about when they're in the containers in the shipyards. Like one of the hired guns in Madripoor was shot the place with a rocket launcher. Ostensibly, now that we know she's the Power Broker, they were after them because of the Power Broker. But she wouldn't have wanted that doctor killed. She wanted
a lot of that stuff. Yeah,
developed.
A lot of their whole storylines are always just like plot. We need to get. It's like, why is Batroc there and she's going there? It's like, well, because he was in the beginning and he's cool.
I hate mastermind villains because you just make stuff up and you say, well, they're 10 steps ahead. It's like, no.
Except for Zemo. Zemo is pretty cool. Even in this, he remains.
He's all right. He doesn't have any purpose. Like they bring him in for a couple episodes. He doesn't actually help, and then they send him back to jail.
Civil War, Zemo was a mastermind.
Yeah, he's great in Civil War but that's because they have his through line. It feels like they decided halfway through that Sharon Carter was going to be the Power Broker. Like I
think this turned him into less a villain though. This because he stays with his like I'm killing super things, and when he starts to me he becomes sort of a hero when he starts smashing the serum things. Like he's like no, he's not getting taken over by power.
His butler is like murdering people on his behalf.
That's super soldiers. He's killing them. Like I know he won't agree with his methods, but I understand what he's doing. Like I understand his ethos.
I guess. I feel like they're softening him up because he will become part of a Thunderbolts kind of situation.
Yeah,
later
they
on.
all will. Yeah,
and we love that. The worst thing you can have in a TV show or a set of movies is an actor that everybody loves, because then you get a villain that gets watered down over time, like a Spike with a chip in his head from Buffy.
I did like the big Marvel, like they didn't do this. We're always waiting for like, was Doctor Strange going to show up in in WandaVision? And this one I was like, we don't have cameos. We have A-list stars coming, like Julia Dreyfus. Like I like her coming into that world.
It's a weird cameo to be excited about, though.
But she's like a big, like I think her.
But when you say it's a big cameo, we assume that it's going to be someone from the established movies.
I know, it's going to be, but I think it like actually
a big actor for me. Something else.
Being such a big Veep fan, also, I think it plays pretty well. Like she's legitimacy into some of those things that other things aren't. Though she's something you never think would be in any of these movies, though. To me,
I think they never take into account the machine that's behind YouTube, though, because when they say a big emotional cameo, everyone said it's going to be Steve Rogers or it's going to be Black Panther. Like, Jesus, those are like up here level.
Well,
cameos.
I didn't. Oh, okay, I didn't say. I was talking about the cameo for WandaVision when they said that. I never heard there was going to be a cameo for this.
Oh, they had said that for Falcon. I never heard that. They're like, there's going to be a big cameo in episode 5, and it's going to be he's like, people are going to cry. Like, nobody cried because Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Yeah. Well, I guess that got.
We thought Chadwick Boseman might be in it.
To me, I like that moment because I wasn't expecting any kind of camera or anything. I was like, oh, weird.
It's better.
She's in this.
I think they're learning not to hype things up behind the scenes because they don't have to. Because like they didn't realize how much people would just latch on to these, which they do. So it's fun, but it does build things up where people are like, that just turned out to be a good show. So what? That's what
Right.
it's supposed to be. That's
the only thing.
An amazing show. Like action wise, it's a great show. The themes that they play within the show are great.
Yeah,
some of the emotional arcs they have throughout are amazing. There's just a couple of wobbly bits in the middle.
And even that fourth episode was not great, but it wasn't bad. It was pretty bad. It was way better. The third episode is the only one that's actually.
Yeah, the third one's the one that you could literally cut the entire episode out and cut every appearance by Zemo. The story would not be impacted, just like you could cut Sharon Carter out of the story completely.
Well, they could. Yeah,
that's why I don't think that they have a very good place in the story, because if I cut Zemo and Sharon Carter out of the story, it just makes the story shorter.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Doesn't hurt anything else.
You try to take all the elements out of a story before you actually change it. Yeah, like to me, the biggest thing I had, and then I watched them more, and I can get emotional with people watching in the reaction videos. Like, okay, I get it. The biggest thing that I think was goofy about the last one, which is like the biggest, like, I felt like the whole last episode was like, we need to edit some of this crap together in some way or shoot this somehow, because I felt that like that was the smallest feeling New York.
Yeah,
because like it's just like a backlot where
it is true. That could have taken place anywhere originally, and they just said it was New York because they only had one shot where they're in a park and they lean up. It's like, oh, there's the Chrysler Building or something.
But it feels like very tiny, and then it's like, and then and while there's good moments in it, my biggest criticism of it is like the 30-minute long speech. That speech is like, not that it doesn't have great lines here and there, and it's kind of interesting. But it's like the most like, it's like I was watching this. It's like, this is the opposite of show don't tell. Like, it's like literally, it's like we're going to spend, I mean, it's like 10 minutes, like 10 minutes wrapping up every theme and everything and articulating which is part of what he's doing. Like, there's a beauty of it that I get. And I watch some people's reaction to it. I'm like, I love that when they're talking about, but that's part of what Captain America does, is that he kind of, he's not just hitting things, but it still went on for about 2/3 too long, though. It should have been a much more succinct.
I do support the speech, though. I mean, you can make it shorter. That's fine.
Like, it just feels like, but the way it like just,
but they're trying to sell it
where there's like breath. It's like, oh Jesus, we're still going here. It's like
there's this sort of preemptive criticism when they're like, well, if you're gonna make Sam Wilson a Captain America, I don't want him being some kind of preachy political Captain America. I'm like, well,
I mean,
he's gonna be, because he's not Steve Rogers. Steve Rogers is a guy from a simpler time, so he just acted in accordance with a simpler time, and somehow magically he and Bucky came from the 40s and had no ounce of racism in them. Somehow it was fine. They were just really good guys. Well, and so when they're not sexist or racist somehow, when they just wake up in modern times and they're just modern men like that. But if you're going to take a modern man, especially a modern black man, and you're going to give him this role of Captain America, he can't just be like, shucks, man, back in my day, we used to like, it's not like that for him.
Right.
So I get that. Be more outspoken. He has to be more political. It's like this is what, if I'm going to be Captain America, if my name is America, then I'm going to have to tell some people what I think about this stuff.
I think my problem is more the flow of it, like the more of it, because what sold me on, like, I saw as a weakness, like, well, I think it's all necessary. Like, I wouldn't change it or take, it's not like a thing. I don't think you could take a bit of it out. That's my point. I just think it's almost from a writing critique standpoint. I was like, this is just weird. It's like, does not flow right. Like, it gets, the second half of it picks up and it's way better. You know, it's like, but it feels like the first little bit of it's like sort of repeated again later in a second. It's like, this is just a weird, but what I love about it is, like, one, it's like what Captain America does. And I love, then when I heard somebody say this comment, then I'm like, okay, I'm fine. These are shows I don't care. This is just, that's the one thing I want to mention to you that I think is a little clunky. But what sold me on, I was like, okay, it's fine. It's when they mention how much it mirrors the moment at the end of Winter Soldier where he gets on the intercom and Steve just gives that speech. Mm-hmm. He's like, no, I know this is not hard. But he didn't see that. See, Chris, the thing is, the Marcus McFee are really good at speeches, so they could have maybe we could like help write something. But like,
well, and to your point, it's not a very long speech in Winter Soldier.
Yeah, and it's very succinct. It is what it is.
themes really quickly.
But I like he does that, and then Falcon, he turns around and Sam's like, "Did you write that down before? Or you just come out?" He's like, and he just kind of walks out. I love that because he comes from being a sort of part of taking on that mantle, because that's what it is. Cap doesn't just go in there and bust, because you said, yeah, he doesn't deal with racism, but he does speechify throughout all the movies. He does take himself as a moral leader of first Shield in that moment, whoever's left of Shield, and of the Avengers, and it's like he's really good at this. You're like, yeah, right.
Yeah,
like
we're meant to assume that he embodies all the best principles of those past times, and somehow he didn't take on any of the worst aspects of the time.
That's these are kids movies, so I get that's what I mean. The fact that they're addressing that now is the miracle, not that there wasn't. It's understandable that they glossed over that before, but I just like that idea. It's like, yeah, because his idea was that we're doing. I like his idea of morally centering intentions before. That's what those speeches were supposed to be. We're about to go in battle. This is the battle of your life. So if you do this, like, or he does that in like Ultron, it's like, if you die, shake it off. Like, he's walking out. He's the one that like kind of centers him. He is the leader.
Well, and that's what separates him from John Walker. John Walker's a perfect soldier. It's like, you told me to go do this and I did it, and now you're mad at me. It's like, well, yeah, as a man, as a good man, you're supposed to develop your own sense of morality, to know, not just to be what you're told to be and do what you're told to do. You're not just a soldier when you go out there to be Captain America.
And with Captain America, he stopped following orders as the day, and that's why the show is so beautiful. We didn't mention that too, because that's such a subtle thing, and they never explicitly say that. But if you're a Marvel fan, you really remember details. Is that Captain America stopped taking orders the day he like busted out of that camp and go saved all those people, which is literally what Isaiah did.
Yeah,
they did the exactly
the same thing.
And he.
But instead of being lauded as a hero, he got thrown in jail. For 30 years.
That's a detail like you didn't know. I mean, you could sort of get it if you're Marvel, but it's like that's such a wonderful.
And that speaks to the privilege that the show.
Yeah,
is
it's the
trying
exact
to say, like,
same thing.
You're saying just take the shield and be Captain America, like oh la di da. Like that's not what it's like for me.
Like, I did that. I took the courage. I did exactly.
That's why I went to jail forever.
And think about it, because Isaiah came after Steve. He could have heard that story, and that could have been inspiring to Isaiah. You know what I mean? Like they don't get into that. He could have gone like, "Well, he did it. I could do that."
America.
He could have like, "Yeah, he did this. I could do this too." Sure. And
we, unfortunately, Winter Soldier gave us the dodge on all that stuff. Where it's like, well, Hydra had already infiltrated everything, so all the bad stuff was some kind of Hydra influence.
Wow.
That's why they water it down for like kids and stuff. But in the landscape of the real world, it's like,
well, even like, if
what governments do, that's the iniquity that you see in actual governments.
Well, yeah, because it's like technically it's those people in the government, but it was the government. So it's like, yeah, because if you pause it and read plot.
I think Mr. Sunday Movies did a thing where he read the whole thing.
I read it, but it says certain people inside the government threw him in jail. I was like, well, hold on.
Bad apples. You know how those bad apples are.
Yeah, it's like that's just locker room talk, guys. Like, yeah, that's like basically it's like just saying that's just. I thought that was a little weird. I was like, why don't they just say no? The U.S. government threw him in jail for. It's like,
I think they just have to walk that line a little bit because it's it's for kids and it's
they have to walk that line. You know why? Because they have military consultants on these. They have these bases and these things.
They take a lot of money from.
They use those C9s or planes and stuff. They used all through the show and the helicopters.
Yeah, so
when they do that, the military has to read the scripts and has to look at the stuff. Like
they should be able to say Shield did whatever they want because Shield is not like the actual branch of the military. Like. But they still watered that down in Winter Soldier to make it look like.
Well, because then it makes it. I know that, but hopefully they're doing it for the reasons of like, well, Steve didn't know about it. That means Peggy definitely knew about it. Then you're like, wait a second, Peggy is like, maybe she wasn't as great as we were all like saying. Like,
yeah,
she turns out
Sharon turned out
racist.
pretty shitty.
It's like maybe because Peggy was really bad.
Yeah, because it's true. I watched every episode of Agent Carter. Like. We really didn't get into whether or not any of those people were racist either.
Yeah. They're misogynist. That's the whole thing's about. But
that's what I like about. That's why I think you have to have Sam become Captain America, because when you're going to have these white superheroes, then you're going to sanitize that, because you're not going to say, Well, other
Well,
than in his horrible racism, Steve Rogers was like the apex guy of his time. Like, so we have to just say, no, he was like his own person, and he didn't have any of the biases or prejudices that some of the people at that time had either, and neither did Bucky. They were just good guys, and probably Agent Carter didn't either, and all her friends from that time didn't. So it has to be a sort of sanitized version of the world. And then,
well, I mean, we got to give them credit because they really did go out. I mean, and even some of the people, I mean, a lot of the reaction people, they're black reaction people that I watch, and they were real interesting with this show. Like, you're like, and they gave the show a lot of credit. I mean, for speaking from a place that we can definitely speak from, because I just wondered if they would think it's watered down, and some of them presented, like when they show the cops pull them over, all those things. And they for overall the ones that I follow, not like this isn't some represented, they really liked it. Most of overall in general, everybody, the people of color that I watched in the reaction videos, again, this isn't some kind of scientific sample, they usually gave Disney a lot of credit for going there.
Well, again, the representation matters when you have people behind the scenes who actually represent.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a
your showrunner is a person of color.
Yeah, it's like they wrote it.
Yeah, so it's like, not just white guys doing their best by saying, "Isn't it great that all the white people aren't racist?" Like, we probably need more nuance.
Well, they kind of do an interesting
bring
thing
in
too.
Some black writers and some black showrunners to see it from that perspective, instead of just saying, "Isn't it great that there's just no such thing as racism?" You have to have somebody say, "Well, no, actually, this is a person that lives in a world where they encounter that, and they're still Captain America." Like you and I were saying, if they do Black Superman, what a great movie that would be to see the person who has to overcome that level.
That's exactly what we were talking about for this. Yeah, exactly. It's like, how do you act this same virtuous in this face of, yeah, you're right, man. This is making me like that speech more, because he said, like, millions of people hate me for this, but I'm still going to defend the, like, that's basically what you're saying.
Yeah, there's some people that won't get behind me as Captain America.
But he didn't say I hate them. He said, I'm here to do it. Yeah, I'm here to do it, though, no matter what.
It's the job.
So it's like,
and that was a Steve Rogers thing too. It's like, I have to decide what is right, and then I have to do that. Those are the two most difficult things.
Yeah, and
but you have to do both of them.
Yeah, and I love that. Those are great lines from him. Civil War is so good. I love what he says that too, because he makes a point of that thing too. He's like, yeah, they're made. He's like, this is made by a committee. It's made by committees. People have agendas, and agendas change. He's like, you take away. And he's like, well, I gave up my thing, stop making weapons. He's like, but you chose to do that. He's like, we give this up, we lose our right
now
to choose.
Now you're choosing this shit for all the rest of us and just telling us sign it and shut up.
But I just love that idea, because he just knows it so well. That's why Winter Soldier did that. Such a great experience, because he's like, agendas change, man. It's like, this is not, morality is beyond this. And like, I like the
it's
kind
such
of
a good argument.
Well, it's also being,
you and I were saying, like, everybody wants the benevolent dictator. Like, everybody, like, we would love for Captain America to be president, because he's like, I'm always going to do what I think is right. Damn all the consequences, and I'm going to stick to my guns. It's like, but if anybody else had that opinion, that would be a terrible opinion for them to have, because we can't trust them to always know what's right.
Right.
Like, so
well, that's why
both of those opinions are valid in Civil War. It's like, but we do need oversight, because we can't just decide what we want to do. And then Steve is like, but only we can decide what we think is right.
But that's
like,
what I'm saying, though. In a real life, if it was real life, you'd be more on Steve, on Tony's side. You're like, yeah, I guess you guys got to have regulations, man. I don't know.
Well, because to Tony's point, it's like, well, the next guy isn't going to be Steve Rogers. The next guy is going to be John Walker. And
he's right. Yeah. And then also, to the credit of that, Steve doesn't actually give any alternative solutions. He's just saying no.
No, he just says we won't do it.
Yeah.
And
so it's
when
like,
we feel like interceding, we will. And
it's like, well, that's not a solution. You need a compromise. And they just like, well, we're going to sign this without you then. So yeah, that's why that movie was genius. The movie is so. But I love how the spirit of this kind of inflects into this, and like I think the subtleties. I think when I see it from other people's perspective, they see it's really how also they handled Bucky in all those situations. Like from the time the cop pulls him over, and Bucky's like, you know who this is, and Sam's kind of pissed at that. He's like, you don't need to tell him who I am. Like that's
that
like
you have to tell him I'm somebody, and then that makes me matter.
Why does that matter?
I did just a minute ago,
right?
Yeah,
and that's
exactly
why is that?
The point.
I mean, and we get that. That's like not a personal experience I've had, because it's cost them like, okay, sure, yeah, here's my ID. But I get it, and if I felt like that, I would be exactly. You don't need to see my ID. What did I do? It's like I'm standing here, we're talking. And they like even lay it on. They're like, this guy bothering you? But it's like, man, it's like, yeah, it's like, no, he's not bothering. I love that. But I love also the way they come around to, because like they're kind of showing, I mean, they get pretty political with that stuff. They show, but they don't do it in a cheesy way, though. That's what I love about. They're doing the Marvel kind of formula, which is with Bucky. They go, and what he does is what a lot of people like talking about, like what people a lot of times say to be a good ally. It's like, no, you just admit the mistake first, admit the privilege, and admit the mistake. And that's what Bucky does. He's like, we didn't, we had no idea, man. I'm sorry. Like we did. Like you can do whatever you want to, and I'll support it now. He's not even saying keep the shield.
Well, that's
at that
our
point.
privilege. We just thought we gave you the thumbs up, and you'd be like, "Gee, thanks."
But he says that he says that without condition in that moment too. Though he's not saying
no, he owns it completely.
He's like, get rid of the shield, throw it in the water if you want to. Now
that's in the same conversation where Sam says to him, "Your problem is that you're seeking redemption by trying to placate your own conscience. Yeah, you go beat up some bad guys." But you're not, and it makes you feel better, or you apologize because you think it'll make you feel better. You have to go be of service. That's such a great hero line.
Yeah, but that's why
you have to be of service.
I love how through the 4th and 5th episode, like we're seeing it's like the shield, but Sam understood this, and when you really dig deep, it like gets emotional with Steve stuff because Steve is like that, and he's so earnest and straightforward that you forget how remarkable he is of characters, like a Superman. You kind of. And you go back and analyze him, man, he's such a good character. When they talk about him in this, you're like, yeah, Steve was so great. Like, but in this, it's like, but Sam knew that. And the cool thing about this is like this, as goofy as it shows and like ham-fisted at times, like with this stuff, but how they handle this arc of Sam is so great because he has to get in touch with like his training as a therapist is what makes him a good, like makes him ready to be Captain America. Well, even a more evolved,
that was something that he chose for himself too. But which even more later on, like Steve followed his example later on in Endgame. Like Steve started doing the same thing based on Sam's example, becoming like doing support for people and providing emotional support because that was what mattered more in that world post blip.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying though. But
that was just in Sam's nature.
Because you get that, you get it a little bit at the beginning, which is cool. He comes circling, he's like, "This is pretty badass." He's like, "I like this guy. Like, it's pretty cool." And he has badass moments. Like, "Who are you?" He's like, "I'm Captain America." Like, he's like, "Yeah, like I like that, all that stuff." But when he has that speech at the end, his Captain America, like it comes off the impression like he's such a good person. That's the thing you get off that some stuff. He's not showboating or grandstanding or having some like kind of courtroom debate with them, you know? I mean, it gets a little close when he's like, I think that's the moment where I think he gets a little close to being like, "You, Senator," and it starts to feel like it's a courtroom thing. I think the strength of the speech is when it gets to be more like, it's like this is like earnest. That's the Captain America moment. It's like
when it's more generalized to the issue.
Yeah. Like, I'm being very earnest right now. And this is what this is. The cameras are blaming me. This is what he's like therapizing everybody. You're right. You know, that's what everybody's watching this. And they're like, okay, he's working on Isaiah. And he does that. And then he gets to the thing. That's why Isaiah, that's a great, lovely scene at the end too. He's like, he does that stuff. And he's like, "You're special though." He's like, I like how then he's like, "You're no Malcolm or Martin or Mandela, but you're special." And he's like, and then he says the stuff like, "Cat, that's a great line." He's like, "So Black Captain America." He's like, "Damn right." That's like one of the best moments of the show. But then
it's the same thing. I chose what was right, and I ran with it.
But then when that's also just a lovely scene because then he says, "Hey, he says, you got a lot of work ahead of you." And he's like, "Well, I know, but just because of sacrifice that like people like you did, I'm not gonna." That means they can't say I can't fight for it. And he kind of like pauses and he's like, "You almost got me." He almost believed you. I almost bought that. That's what he says. He's like, "Man, I love that character, Isaiah." Because you don't get the crack in Isaiah until right at the end when he hugs him. Because he finally sees the thing and he sees that like he's not in hiding anymore. That's like
Isaiah must not watch the news because if they just put that stuff in the museum, people are like, "Whoa, what the hell?"
Because that's a practical consideration. Because it's not just that this is a touching moment. He doesn't have to hide anymore if he's in the Smithsonian there in Space Museum where that thing is. It's like he can go walk out and collect benefits. Man, you need to get some benefits. It's like
time to sue that government. Yeah,
it's like. Yeah, obviously, yeah, that too. Like he could actually do that, But that's that and he actually cracks him. And that actor does. I forgot what that actor's name is.
He's good though. Yeah.
He does so good in that.
Ludlow?
Carl Ludlow.
Ludlow?
I think it's Ludlow, but he does such a good job of just being so vulnerable by the end. He like really does crack. You're like, wow, this is like this. It's an emotional ending. Like it's emotional, but it comes off from what Sam does there too. That's all like Steve. I mean, we have to. I don't mean to compare it to be like some kind of like weird, like not better than Steve, but that's that's the litmus. And it's you can imagine Steve doing all those things. Like he went out his way to make the museum thing for the guy. Like, get that thing.
I kind of expected him, old Steve, to show up, but then I was glad they didn't, because it's like, let's not dilute the moment by making it look like.
No, he takes up.
He's the one
he's
running
mature,
it. Like,
even though he was
Sam
never. He wasn't immature before that. He was very mature before it. But there's a level that Captain America is that you need to comport. Like he is not again, not like he didn't do it before, but he has to decide that that's him now. That the earnestness and he's still himself. He's still saying, "I'm going to get that. You earned this ass whooping." Like he's cussing and while he's doing it. He's a little bit different. Like he's his own. He's Sam. He's not Steve.
Yeah, but he is Captain America. That's the important thing. He's not Steve Rogers, but he is Captain America.
Right. And that's what
the show really establishes so well.
I think it's like amazingly.
Like, and so I'm so excited to see another Captain America. I mean, I was already, but now especially so.
It'd be cool to see another show. Yeah, and they showed the thing at the end where it's like Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Like, hell yeah, that's cool. I love that. And then I was like, love to see another season of the show, but I was like, no, they need to give him the bona fides now with his own movies, like call it Captain, it's Captain,
and that's
America.
what they're developing. Like,
make another trilogy for him with like something like whatever you do.
That is the way, and that way, good. Like, let's say for whatever reason you only watched movies and you didn't see the TV show. In game, they established that he was going to take on the mantle. So if you just went on to Captain America 4, it makes perfect sense. Sam Wilson is Captain America. But if you have invested in watching the TV show, then this is a really fun way to address like the reservations that he had stepping into that role. And they did a really good job with it. And I'd like to see him tighten up the suit a little bit, but I do like the suit design.
I mean, remember Avengers Captain America suit sucked too. So it's like, they'll get it.
Yeah. I mean,
Soldier was when it got good.
They play around with doing these bright colors, and I love it because they don't want to just do muted tones. I think
they could have left out. I know that's in the comics, but like the weird neckerchief thing just makes it look weird.
I think the whole thing just hangs a little heavy on him.
Well, that not just
suit. I think they just need to slim that suit up. The design, I think, is fine. Even the color scheme is fine. I think you just need to slim that suit up a little bit.
I'm trying to imply that it has more armor, but I mean, Black Panther's is slim.
That's fine, but it could be vibranium. It was made by the Wakandans.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Black Panther's as slim as it can be, and it's like form fitting, and it's still
And like everybody said, you still didn't give him a helmet. He flies.
They don't go over that, but now this is cool because we're now in Wakanda tech now, not Stark tech anymore. It's the same way that Spider-Man having the Tony suit makes it like really cool. He can do certain things. Now, the only thing he doesn't have is super strength. But with a vibranium suit, he could be bulletproof. He could be all these things.
Does, and like apparently he can lift up a truck between like, even though he has like thrusters on his back and vibranium armor. So now apparently he can like, pick up a truck.
And he's knocking people around. So like, I think it adds some sort of reinforcement to him. They just didn't go into that because it's like,
but it's fine because he's just fighting Patroke.
But doing that now, I mean, he doesn't have super strength completely, sure, and Bucky's always there to help him be a sidekick now, but. He's like, as a package, it's even better because he can fly anywhere in 2 seconds. It's like a fun thing to watch. He's like, boom, and takes off. You're like, that's better than Steve's. He's just running on. Like, remember Avengers?
And he has these cool uses for his wings too, like in like defensively and offensively, and like because you would think, well, if he has thrusters, can't he just fly like Tony Stark? It's like, yeah, but the wings seem to come in useful. Like they found a way to like make the wings like work.
Oh, so many they hit people with them. He cuts people. Yeah, now they're vibranium.
He can make like a weird little phalanx and block a helicopter
on top of his head too.
Like my God, like don't even need the shield.
Yeah, all that. I think
it's like a $9 billion super suit.
Again, the suit's a little bit like the show. Cool. I love the intention and the passion behind it. A little clunky at times, like a little clunky here and there. But that's sort of the show. But also where it matters, which is what like the boldness of the suit is where it matters, and they pulled that off. Like, wow, this is like they're going at it. Like, it's not just being.
And if you see from one movie to the next, they tweak the costumes of every character.
Again, so let's remember Avengers. Captain America suit was probably the worst one.
Yeah, I loved what they were going for there.
Remember, like weird,
but
like
Winter Soldier. They immediately gave him that black suit, and then he went back to the original, which is the best one.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think. Well, as far as being cool, that Winter Soldier one's like the coolest. Like as far as being
that was pretty cool. The in-game outfit that had sort of it was suggestive of the scale mail. I thought that one was pretty cool.
So yeah, it's cool. I mean, all those things are. I was really happy the emotionally, at least at 5. And again, this was a little clunky of an episode, but it had all the moments. And Walker had a little bit of nice moment, but his stuff gets so lost and like there's
the tone is too erratic. This show should have been 8 episodes. I think we would have had a little bit better arc.
You're gonna have to wrap him up first too, in a way. They just didn't wrap him up really in a nice
they gave him a nice little resolution that he chose to save someone.
Sure, yeah, and then he's like sitting there with the speech too. Like now he gets a good guy and he's like agrees with them and he agrees with Sam, but he never has the moment where he's like, you know what, I'm giving this up. This idea of the shield, like we don't get that any bit of closure on that kind of sort of thing, you know. But that also might tie into the fact that he's still kind of tying on to being some sort of hero the same way, like
and we'll see that going into him being U.S. agent, he still is sort of like, I am the super soldier, and now they like me. Like he said, I'm back. Like he never has like. I would like if they do something like Thunderbolts or whatever. I would like if they sort of revisit like what haunts him about that time. And that would be
I think they did such a good job. I mean, I think he did such a good job, and I like he has a good attitude with all the people trolling him and hating him. He's like, man, he's like he must have his dad's personality. He's like, I don't know, man. It's like he's like whatever. It's like because, and also for him, it means it's an ongoing thing. But I think they did such a good job of always never leaning into his like mustache twirl. Like he's always like, no, he's still a normal dude. Even in the end, the point where he like kind of gets a like they're like you're kicked out and he like hits like, whoa, man, you gotta freak it. But then what he says is totally true. It's like you guys trained me to do this, and I've only done what you like. He killed that guy and he acted that was a mistake. But his point is like,
but who trained me to kill? Like that's his point. They don't have a time to really address that as well as they should.
Because that actually plays a much better because that is something outside the racial thing that they didn't mention. In Steve's time, we didn't train soldiers the exact same way. I mean, yeah, they went to boot camp. In World War II, we're like sending them out. Like they went to boot camp. And Steve, to his credit, he didn't really have boot camp. He had a little bit of the thing. And then he went and then he was a stage performer. And then he was in the war. So he was never trained to be a killer like that. You know, he was where the way we do now, which is like they're much more efficiently trained, and like especially he was like a special ops guy. Like he was trained to be a killer, man, and that's what he's been, and that's what he did. So it's like he can't be Captain America, but he was being an American soldier. That's basically what he was doing. Like, so it's like I get that. I think they just do a great job of.
That speaks more to your point. Like they can't get into that as deep as they should because they do tend to rely on assistance from the American military. So they can't say stuff that is overtly critical, but that is what he's saying there. Like he doesn't say that outright. Like you're the ones who trained me to kill people, and now you're telling me I'm a disgrace for doing exactly. But he does say, I did what you told me to do. I was what you told me to be. And that's as far as they can do without outright being accusatory towards the armed forces.
The only thing I wish they did in this was like they should have mentioned that like it was during the summer or like wherever this was. I don't know what time. They never really mentioned since how long since the blip do they in this show. Because of that moment,
a few months seem to go by throughout the course of the show.
Yeah, well, I wish they had said, well, this is like June, because I wish it lined up with like Spider-Man Far From Home. So because that's the one cameo. I was like, where the hell's Spider-Man? Spider-Man, it's New York, buddy. It's like you see this on the news. Well, everybody's watching this on the news.
That's sort of like the disingenuous argument that everyone comes up with. I mean, do you want them to come up with a throwaway line in every movie to explain why all the other people in the universe aren't there? Like, let's assume, because if you cut to Spider-Man, he always has some shit going on, doesn't he? Like, all right.
Well,
So
but
that's what
you
he's
know what I'm
doing.
missing. Here's what I'm missing in some of these. Not like the Spider-Man being that. Because I know what they're doing, and they kind of had to work out this way because they all got released separately too. You know, this is supposed to come out first, and then WandaVision. And WandaVision, it's understandable because they're in another reality for the whole time. But this one, I was missing the continuity of the like in Far From Home. I love seeing all the Tony like we should have seen some for Steve, right? They all think he died too. Like that would have been cool in this to see some more like, hey, after the fact, people are like saying this about Captain America, you know. We didn't really get a lot of that except for the museum, and maybe it's some kind of weird deal or something.
Well, I think they didn't want Steve's memory to overshadow what was going on with Sam.
Sure.
But the thing to me that stands out is weird is if you wanted to make a legit criticism is Rhodey is in the first episode. Like they've established him in the universe of this show.
And he doesn't show up in the last episode or anything. Yeah.
So that's a little weird. It's still fine because Rhodey could be doing other things,
like presenting that statue to Zay at the end, like saying, "Sir, like I'd like to, you know, something." They get there, it's like,
yeah, that would have been cool.
You know,
like, look, we had like one scene with Don Cheadle. What do you want from us?
He was there for a day. We just tried to see the Smithsonian. That's all we did.
We can't have him dress up in the armor. We got a whole series for him, so you'll find that out too. Sharon Carter's probably going to cause no end of shenanigans for Rhodey.
Yeah, I mean, again, they're part of the storytelling where you have to sacrifice when you break into TV shows like this as we move on. It's like part of this, it's going to move into pulp territory. It's like, what can you do? So many, you know, these B lines and C lines are going to be like the Sharon Carter.
I mean, most of these guys are gone. Thor is probably off in outer space. Who knows whatever Hulk is doing?
Well, he's going to be in She-Hulk. So
then we'll find out what he's doing. So we'll know he's busy. Spider-Man's always got Spider-Man stuff going on. Iron Man's dead. Black Widow's dead. Who else? Ant-Man? I'm sure he has some Ant-Man shenanigans that are going on.
Well, he has some movie.
He's got Quantum Mania, so he's going to be busy.
It's Krang or whatever. Not Krang.
Yeah, Krang.
Is it Krang? What is it?
It's Kang.
Kang. I always say Krang.
Yeah, so
Kang is like a level like a Thanos
yeah, he's
level.
Like a Thanos level threat. Yeah, so he's going to have some
Ant-Man.
stuff going on. So it'll all come around.
So yeah, I'm interested. Oh, you see the this trailer for the Ten Rings movie? Yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
It looked fun.
Like a good one.
It's different.
It gives me a kind of Black Panther vibe. I like for you guys to pull in a different cultural mythology to play with for these characters.
Well, especially when they show the flashbacks and weird like Crouching Tiger flashbacks.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this looks really cool.
So you guys could really have a lot of fun with this.
It's like that.
Yeah, I see more of that Iron Fist bullshit.
I really want to see the Eternals trailer.
Yeah, well, like you said, now that she's won like the Oscar,
she won the Oscar. Yeah, she won Best Director,
Best Picture. Like,
but I was like, that's the one, especially like Kumail and other people. I was like, I want to see what that is. It's like I just want to see that movie. Like, it's a weird cast and an interesting.
That's next year, though, right? That got pushed back into 2022, right?
No, there's 4. No, I thought it's still in November.
Oh, really? Man, they're just blocking them off because Shang-Chi's in September, and then Spider-Man's in December. So they're just going bop 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 with them if that's coming out in November.
WandaVision, Falcon, Winter Soldier, and Loki is June 11th.
Black Widow is in June or July, right?
Well, Loki's June 11th. Black Widow's July 9th. What If comes out sometime this year too. Shang-Chi is September 3rd. Miss Marvel comes out this year.
Really?
Hawkeye
it's a show.
Hawkeye
is that coming? Is that going to be on Hulu or Disney Plus?
No, Disney Plus.
That's a Disney Plus show.
And Hawkeye comes. They were just shooting. I did check. Eternals.
Yeah. I keep forgetting about Hawkeye.
Eternals comes out November 5th. And then Spider-Man's the one that's crazy. It comes out in December.
That's crazy. I can't wait for Spider-Man.
In the end, it's like, I don't know. That's why the thing I can tell you about the WandaVision and this is that I couldn't even say which one I like more because they're totally different.
Yeah, I don't think it's a fair comparison.
Completely different. And they both
is more innovative and interesting and weird, but I personally am just very invested in the Captain America mythology and that series and Sam as a character. Like So to get to see him become Captain America is very fulfilling for me.
Yeah, to me, it's like they did exactly what that needed, though. Too.
Yeah.
They went the direction of we need to address this where he can become a Captain America. We're not going to shy away from it. He just shows up in the next Avengers movie, like, "Hey, I'm here." Like they did the work, and so now they can just have him. He can just be the movie. He's Captain America now. Like,
yeah, deal with it.
Yeah, I saw real quick. The last thing I saw, Anthony Mackie was saying. He really talks about his kids a lot, but he was talking about his kids and one of these things he said when they watched Endgame, he has a daughter and his son were there and they were like younger. And he's like, and when Cap gives him the shield. Oh, that's also a great moment where Bucky says, "Good job, Cap." Like he says, calls him Cap. He calls Sam Cap. Like, oh, that made me like tear. I was like, "Oh, there's calling him Cap." That's what, and he did the shoulder pat like they do to each other, like Sam, like Steve always did to Bucky. Anyways, he's watching Endgame and Steve gives him the shield. And his daughter's like, are you? And then, but he said his son didn't react. Son's like, "So are you Captain America now?" He's like, yeah, sure, I think so. And then he said he just didn't really take it. He was like 10-year-old. He's like, okay, like he's like acting weird about it. And then he said, like, I guess he said he wasn't with him, so he was like in a he might have been like in a job, and his son called him like a couple of weeks later. It was like a couple of weeks he had to call him. He's all emotional. He's like, "That's so cool. I didn't realize that you're like he's gonna be." He's like, he said he's sorry, but he's like, but Anthony Mackie was so sweet. He's like, because I started crying, talking. He was like, "Yeah," and he's like, they both are like crying, talking to each other. I was like,
just process this.
Yeah, it's like this is good. So I was like, that's really that was before this show, which is even more like. Can you imagine? Like, that's the thing about having that and him having the son and like, well, her kids and daughter watching it. Like, that's cool. I think it's really neat. Like I said, WandaVision was cool because they're both emotionally resonant in different ways at the end. And that was just as powerful in a way. But this is like they needed this time to sort of take on Steve's mantle and how important that storyline is and how big a gravitas. Not important, but how much gravitas. He leaves a huge wake. Him not being there. And him and Tony not being there.
Medicine, like if you had people that were like, I just don't see how Sam Wilson's going to become Captain America. I was like, well, let's take some time and ease you into that. This is what it means for him to become Captain America.
If you think about it, Far From Home was the whole movie about Tony's wake. That's what that whole movie is. So that's Spider-Man's like, who's going to be the Iron Man? Like, the point of that is like nobody can be Iron Man. That's not like a Captain America thing. It's like, but you are Spider-Man and you are this thing and you can be whatever.
Yeah, you're actually
the same story.
Tony Stark didn't want you to be Iron Man,
but he picked him as his predecessor, though. As the person who's going to at least take his spirit. Not predecessor. His successor to take over in spirit after he's gone with whatever. So they're the same sort of thing. We need processing time for these two people, especially Cap, though, because he's the moral backbone of this entire franchise. So it's like,
and it's such a good time because Endgame was such an epic finale to that whole storyline with those characters. So to have these stories where we actually get to see the people in the wake of that, and I'm sort of deal with that void. Like they don't just go straight into, and then we had like an Avengers 5 or whatever, and it's just a different line of people, and they're all on board. Like we're doing a slow rebuild of that team. So when they have another Avengers movie with these other characters that they've eased into those roles, it's going to be very potent. It's going to be very profound. See that?
And I'm sort of glad. Yeah, we're going to building them up again like we did when people had their own movies. But like, and I really like too that. Because Endgame was pretty near perfect for what it had to do and what it does, But, and while the moment is emotional, that moment comes off as weirdly incomplete when Cap, like it's emotional because he's giving him the shield, but he even says it right there. And he's just like, I don't think I could do this. And he's like, well, I think you can.
Like, well,
and he changes.
Will. But he's then like he perfect old white guy. Well, you will.
Right. But then he changes the subject. But you can tell he's like, kind of like and then he changed. He's like, you can tell me about her, and it's like it's sweet, and he's treating him like an old guy, like an old man, like his grandpa. But it's like, especially now, given hindsight and now what's happened, you can read that as like he's got a lot of reservations in that moment. He's like the sweetness of it plays, but that's what I like.
the show is saying.
Thing to
My
process.
reservation wasn't just about living up to the legacy of this one man. My reservation was also about what that means for me in this
country,
this
right? Like,
culture,
in, like what?
which
Yeah,
is something that Steve Rogers is basically ignorant of.
right. So I think that's good. That's what I'm saying. Though I love that they're again what Marvel does, and we start, we'll blow them up all we want to, but like Marvel. What Kevin Feige, I think, as a thing, and I'm giving him credit. I mean, he doesn't write these shows, but and other writers and stuff get all the credit, obviously. But Kevin Feige, as a leader, is really good at doing, especially he did it with WandaVision too, is understanding what makes these characters essential and interesting. Like, what's the core emotionality and what's the core themes that we need to talk about in the next moment?
Because if you don't push for that, then nobody cares about the story.
Right. Like he knows,
that has
like
to be the core of every story.
Like to him, it's like we need to deal with this thing with Sam going into the next thing that has to be dealt with. Like you can imagine that's like them. I mean, he had to hire all the people. I mean, whatever happened, they hired the director and the writers. So I mean, like they had, they hire them knowing what the story would be, like this is what we're going to deal with. Like, so credits all that stuff because they didn't. And then with Wanda, even too, it's the same thing. It's like the Vision thing was so traumatic and we blast by it in Infinity War because we have to move on to Thanos. And then she shows up and kicks some butt in Endgame, but it's like we haven't dealt with this Vision thing yet. That's what I like these shows are. They're dealing with them grief and the aftermath of these events that were so traumatic to everybody.
You don't have time in an already 3-hour movie to get into the nuances, all that stuff, but there's a lot of fallout that comes out of a story that big.
That being said, the overall show, I think I would have watched it and enjoyed it the same if it was 5 episodes or 6 episodes and we never went to Europe and it was just him in America.
I think a drama, you actually needed to pad that out into more episodes where we get to see more of these characters, or you need to shorten it, like because the Madripoor thing didn't service the story at all. Unfortunately, there's an exposition dump in the middle of the episode, but I'm sure you could have handled that somewhere else.
Like again, like the 4th episode's better, but that episode plays like the last one where they're like, now we're going here, now we're going back here, now we're going over here. I had cool moments, and the Dora Milaje and all those people show up, and it's great. But it's like, now we're going here. Now we're going to show up here. Now we're at this warehouse. Now we're at this warehouse.
Yeah, I feel like you guys are just excited about all your location scouting.
It's like
we got all this Prague stuff.
They returned to that house set 3 times in that episode to Zemo's house. Like, why do you keep coming? This doesn't seem like a journey.
And you could have leveraged Sokovia so much more if you wanted them to go there.
Right.
But like you could have done a lot more with that in the context of the story. And it really doesn't matter. Like I said, Zemo doesn't matter in the context of the story.
Right. Well, we got to get the 10 hours of Zemo dancing on YouTube. So
yeah. We all like to see Daniel Bull, so that's good.
You need to put that at the end of this video, I think.
Yeah. Now I'll get a strike. If we get a damn claim every time we do anything. Like and it really messes with our monetization of our. What are we going to do when we hit 1,000 subscribers and we can't monetize
4,000 viewing hours? That's 4,000 viewing hours. Like, geez.
Yeah, I think we'd reach that if we get 1,000 subs. Like that seems to be the harder metric for us right now.
Maybe so.
But whatever.
Cool. That was fun.
We'll just start a Patreon when we feel like we've got something worth paying money for.
Yeah, so I think with Loki, we're going to try to do a watch along for that. So
we should do an episode for episode with Loki. I think that'd be fun.
Because I think we can do a watch along and then we can discuss it afterwards. That'd be fun.
And I could have done that for this. I'd have had fun.
Yeah, when we started, we went to the first episode. Like, I don't know if it's meaty enough, and they kind of got into it. We're like, I don't know, and then I was like, man, I wish we would have, because it got meaty and it got good. And we'll do it from now on. I'll start all Disney Plus shows.
Well, everything Disney Plus. Yeah.
Well, look, it's easy to do Marvel shows. If they're all going to be 6 episodes, like this, like 6 episodes, like that. That's easy.
Yeah, then we'll slog through Hawkeye, I guess.
We got Loki, man. That'll be fun.
Loki will be, I think, will be great fun. I'm sure Hawkeye will be good, but Loki looks like really, really fun.
I'm excited about Hawkeye because I like the actress, Haley Steinfeld. I like her a lot. She's good. The one that's in Bumblebee. She's really good.
That's cool.
Yeah, I like her.
I'm sure they'll do something good with it. Like all these shows are fun. I like it. It's a consistent brand, Marvel. We know that
that's what they've
there's
always
be
been.
something to enjoy in the Marvel stuff.
Yeah, which is the thing.
When a DC thing comes out, there's always just a little bit of like reserved excitement.
Suicide Squad looks great.
Suicide Squad looks awesome. I'm very excited about that. I want to see the Peacemaker.
Warner Brothers.
The Flash movie sounds very promising now. They did definitely sign Michael Keaton to come back as Batman.
We didn't talk about it, but I think Mortal Kombat was actually way better than it should have been.
We need to do a Mortal Kombat.
We'll talk about that.
I
think that was, as a spoiler, that was, I don't know what to expect going into it, but it was way more entertaining than
it was fun.
It's fun.
It was fun. I'm not a huge Mortal Kombat fan.
I am.
But it was a lot of fun.
We'll talk about it next time because
we should watch the animated one because that one's pretty fun too, and then we can cover both of them.
All of them, and I bought Mortal Kombat on Mortal Monday when it came out. So I was part of the whole I was 13 and that movie game came out. So I
think that shows our age difference a little bit. Yeah, because you were aged out of Mortal Kombat.
You're like 6-7 years older than me, so it's but I was peak age for Mortal Monday, Mortal, all that stuff is yes.
We'll have to talk about that then. Hopefully we can get Brooks on that one because he saw that one too, so that'd be fun. All right, cool. Well, this has been TV Ate My Dinner since we didn't introduce the show at any point, but that's fine. You can follow TV Ate My Dinner right here on the Marvel Age Star Wars YouTube channel. We are also still putting out audio eps on Libsyn, so if you subscribe that way, then that's probably how you're listening to it now. But go over to YouTube in that case and check out the videos as well. If you're watching this, then check out the Marvel Age Star Wars shows that we have, where Brooks and I cover the vintage Marvel Star Wars comic and have a little bit of fun with that. You can follow TV Ate My Dinner on Facebook and on Twitter. So we got that going on too, and other channels to be announced. Hopefully we'll get some more shows out there for you soon, but they're in the works. So in the meantime, if you like this, then please click the like and hit the notifications bell to follow other things on the channel, and subscribe if you have not already. And that's pretty much all I got for that.
Smash that subscribe button.
Smash things and like them and lick them and whatever you do on YouTube. Whatever gets you there, do that to the appropriate button. In the meantime, till we see you next, my name is Sean.
My name's Andrew.
And we'll talk to you later.